is the Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining us. Hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Charles Albanese, President and Managing Partner of Keiretsu Forum. Keiretsu Forum is a global investment community of accredited private equity angel investors, venture capitalists, and corporate institutional investors. Keiretsu Forum is a worldwide network of capital, resources, and deal flow with 53 chapters on 4 continents. And Keiretsu Forum members invest in high-quality, diverse investment opportunities. Charles, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Can you tell us more about your background before joining Keiretsu Forum?
My background has always been in startups. The very first startup that I joined coming out of school was a small company called Metro One. The recruiter actually brought me in telling me that this company probably won't survive, but it's a great place to get your experience. Metro One eventually morphed into AT&T Wireless. I was the 34th employee, and when I left the company 16 years later, we had grown into well over 12,000 employees and became a nationwide and international company. After AT&T, I moved on to other startups, eventually ending at a hedge fund, where I found out about Keiretsu Forum. Keiretsu Forum followed the very same process that the hedge fund followed, and I was very intrigued by how they were able to move through with the resources that they had and bring in high-quality deals. I joined Keiretsu, and to this day, it's been almost 10 years. And to this day, I'm still with them. I enjoy the forums, and I think it's a great opportunity for guests and members.
Great. Well, Charles, you've spent over 3 decades in financial management across various sectors. How has the field evolved over the years, especially with the integration of new technologies?
Become far more complex and global. With the advent of internet, blockchain, social media, financial instruments have also followed suit, becoming far more complex and difficult for most investors to navigate and to be confident in their decisions. Data and analysis has become king. Vetting properly various investments, following those through to fruition, and then eventually exiting has become far more difficult than it had been in the past, which is one of the reasons I became associated with Keiretsu. A process that takes you from the early stages to the exit stages. But in general, the financial markets themselves are not what they used to be. People used to invest in confidence, balancing their portfolios in 3 basic categories: high risk, medium risk, low risk. However, with the changes that have taken place and the fluctuations in the market based on global events, based on technological issues, become far more complex and more difficult for the individual investor to make an intelligent decision and see it through.
So you specialize in strategic planning and visioning. Can you describe your process for setting long-term goals for a company?
Aside from my work with Keiretsu, and also I'm in a small hedge fund overseeing asset management, to set the vision in the company as to where you want to be to account, and then bridging that gap and determining what are the milestones we need to reach to get to that point. But to understand that flexibility is key, being able to change at any given point in time the plan and making sure that you've got the people in place to be able to execute that plan.
Great. Well, with your background in team and project leadership, what key qualities do you think are essential for effective leadership?
Flexibility. That's number one. Always being open to change. Change management is essential in any startup or any company. What I have found earlier in my career, especially in working when I was with AT&T Wireless, you were constantly changing how you did things and what you did to get to those areas. Adapt at your systems and how you were going to satisfy those customers' needs as those customers change, evolving in what they're expecting from a product and or service, and analyzing what is taking place in the markets and adjusting to them really gives you the advantage in any business to be able to adjust and satisfy those customers' needs to become successful.
So, how do you foster these qualities within your teams to achieve the corporate goals?
That's a great question. And most people, that's the one area I think most people fail in. They need to know the strengths and weaknesses of their team members, and they need to assign the tasks accordingly. And as the company grows and changes, they need to be able to mentor those team members for growth. You know, a lot of companies today will look at a team that they've established, and if they don't have the prerequisites as the company grows and changes, they many times remove those team members and bring on other team members. You lose something when you do that. You lose the history with the company, you lose that loyalty with the company. It's very important to grow the people you have with you. Now, that's not to say that if you have a new situation where you need a specific talent, not to go out and find that talent and bring it in. But at the same time, developing loyalty with your existing.
Can you give us an overview of what Keiretsu Forum is and what makes it unique in the world of angel investing?
Keiretsu Forum is let me start off with this. I have gone to many angel organizations within the New York City arena. And the one thing that sets Keiretsu apart from all of the others is its process. The screening determine the types of companies and the prerequisites require guests and members to make decisions as to whether they'd be interested in those companies, number one. Number two, coaching them on the presentation. What needs to be presented to our guests and members for them to make an intelligent decision as to whether they'll be interested in that company or not? And also having it presented in a clear and precise manner. Thirdly, very valuable is mind share. Mind share is a situation where guests and members who have subject matter expertise in those particular companies can share their thoughts. During the Keiretsu Forum, we ask the entrepreneurs who have just presented to leave the room. We then have an open discussion about the positives and negatives of what we just heard. And one of the greatest values is having individuals in the room who've had expertise in those particular areas who can tell you that, look, I've seen this done a dozen times, it never works. Or I've seen this done a dozen times, this is a novel approach. I do believe, based on what I've seen so far, that I'd be interested in investing in this particular company, which then as an investor gives me the confidence that if I do decide to potentially move forward with this company in the longer term, that even though I don't have the particular expertise in this area, that at least there are people with expertise who are confident in this company. And then, of course, following that is due diligence. You know, one of the things that sets us apart from many other angel organizations is due diligence. We have MBA and JD candidates out of various universities who are doing what I call the day-to-day work or the grunt work to do the due diligence, and it's overseen by a member who's a subject matter expert. And after that due diligence has been completed, we then post that due diligence and allow our members to decide whether they want to make that investment or not based on what they see in the due diligence. And of course, last but not least is term sheet. You know, one of the major issues that I've always had in investing in angels or startups is the fact that I have to haggle with the various companies to determine what is my equity stake going to be for the amount of money I'm putting in. One of the things we do at Keiretsu is we've done that for you. The legalese and all of the work and the term sheets that are already created are on our proprietary website and available to our members. If they decide they'd like to make that investment, they can move forward with that term sheet and not be bothered by the complex legal issues surrounding it.
Well, great. So investing, especially in startups, is often associated with high risk. How does Keiretsu Forum mitigate those risks throughout the investment process?
Something that I've already touched on, which is the screening process. What we normally do is we may have a dozen companies who apply to us to present to our guests and members each month. Out of those dozen companies, we'll pare those down to about 6 companies. And those 6 companies will then go through a live screening. At that live screening, one of 3 things can take place. A company can be slated to move on to present at a forum to our guests and members. A company could be rejected. We just don't think there's something there that our guests and members would be interested in investing in. Or third, we definitely think there's something there. There's an opportunity. However, either all of the information required for our members to make a decision as to whether they're interested in that company or not is not present in the presentation, and or the person who's presenting it is not presenting it clearly. Many times a founder is not a great presenter. Many times perhaps the person who's in charge of marketing or the CEO or someone else within the organization can present in a more coherent and cogent way. So through that screening process, we're able to bring high quality companies and have them clearly presented to our guests and members. Last but not least, what I mentioned earlier is due diligence. Due diligence is the key. 9 out of 10 people who are investing in various startups are not doing complex due diligence. They're not doing background checks on the keys. They're not reviewing their financials. One of the things that I currently do in my capacity as overseeing asset management for a small hedge fund is due diligence. Every time we're looking at a company, I'm on the ground. I'm digging through the financials. I'm digging through the legal issues. Where I don't have the expertise, I'm outsourcing that. We do that at Keiretsu. We do the due diligence so that you don't have to. Due diligence can be quite complex. And just to note, if we're going through the due diligence process and we find something we don't like, we find a situation where there's an issue, and I'm not going to get into specifics, but there's an issue that concerns us, we will terminate due diligence. We will not say why. We're not going to damage a company's reputation. We'll just terminate the due diligence and let our members know that this due diligence has been terminated and we're no longer presenting that company as a viable investment at this point in time. However, if a company passes due diligence, those due diligence reports are put up on our proprietary website. We encourage our members not just to read the summaries, which they can do, but to read the full due diligence report. Many times there are things you find in those due diligence reports that make you more confident that you're going to make that investment, and or opportunities where you can help that company. You see a situation where, although you may not have expertise in that particular vertical, but there are aspects of the company that do need some help in, let's say, finance or let's say marketing, that you have expertise in, and that you're going to invest in that company, and you can assist that company by offering your expertise at the same time.
So collaboration seems to be a core element of Keiretsu Forum. How do partnerships with universities, professional services, and other financial institutions enhance those opportunities for both investors and entrepreneurs?
This is part of the secret sauce of Keiretsu. It really brings together all of these aspects that I've just talked about. In regard to the universities, the due diligence that is being completed, it brings those resources to play, enables them to do a deep dive on professional services, the legal aspects that I mentioned earlier from the term sheet perspective, to looking at how the company is structured, to making sure all of the documentation is in place for the company to be able to function properly and to adhere to the various complex governmental regulations and tax code are all part of them. And for both the entrepreneurs and the investors, it gives them the confidence that when they do write that check and accept that term sheet, that they have had a thorough review of all of the legalese and financial aspects that needed to be taken into account before they made that investment.
So what advice would you give listeners interested in learning more about Keiretsu Forum or attending a meeting? How can they get involved?
Have a conversation with the chapter president initially so you can get more of a direct understanding of how Keiretsu operates. I've given you an overview, but the chapter president could really give you a better, more detailed overview. Also, speak to a member. Our members are our most valuable resource. Our members bring in other members all the time. Our members understand the complexity of angel investing and how to do it properly, how to achieve exits in the longer term without suffering losses. Any angel investment is going to be a risk. We advise anywhere from 10 to 12 investments in order to achieve that, 5 or 10x return, that some of those investments are going to fail. Some are going to break even or take a much longer time frame, and some are going to excel and give you that 20 or 30x return. So by speaking to our guests, our members, excuse me, and or the chapter presidents, you're really getting a better education as to how Keiretsu operates to minimize the companies and the losses that could potentially take place and maximize the upside or the wins that you're going to have in order to make your returns and your exits the highest they can be.
Great. So how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Well, they can do that in a couple of different ways. One way is to give me a call. It's my phone number's 201-970-7000. That'll come directly to me. Obviously, I picked that number when I was with AT&T Wireless many, many years ago. Another way is to email me. It's charles@keiretsuforum.com. I will answer emails promptly, and what I'll probably do is set up a call with you. I think it's the most advantageous way to get to know Keiretsu is to have a call, as I mentioned, with chapter president, then attend one of our forums. You can attend virtually, or if you're in a market, which we're currently having a live forum in, you can attend in person. The benefits of attending in person are obviously you're able to see the presenters, you're able to speak to other guests and members and get a better understanding of how Keiretsu operates. However, that first initial contact would be with myself to give you an overview and to understand what you're looking for. One of the keys in membership is to understanding what are our members looking for? Are they looking for, just experimenting within the angel world and they've never done it before and they're looking for an education? Or are they an experienced angel investor who are looking for a great place to look at great deals to make some serious decisions as to whom they'd like to invest in? One of the other aspects, by the way, of Keiretsu is our educational program. We do due diligence workshops and other workshops. With our membership comes a membership with the ACA, the Angel Capital Association, which has numerous other workshops. One of the best things in the world for any angel investor to do is to get educated on angel investing. That is not done in any of the other angel groups that I go to and attend and oversee their presentations. And in this way, being an educated investor is the best way to see excellent results.
Great. Well, I'll include the contact details in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Thank you all. I appreciate your time today.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.